Hi, I'm Auntie Sharon, host of Mary's Eclectic Interests. And today our guest is Joy Sorich, and she was on our show last time. Welcome, Joy. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, last time when you were on the show, we made wonderful scones.
Yes.
And we talked about what would be good with scones would be tea.
Yes, they go hand in hand.
And you have an online tea store, right?
I do. It's called Cup of Joy Tea at cupofjoytea.com.
Okay.
And it's organic teas that I take great care in sourcing, and I also blend many of them, and they're all as clean as they can be.
That's great. And what tea are we going to have today?
You're going to have a white tea because it's later in the day, and it's kind of, this tea is beautiful because it's got all those pretty botanicals in there.
Let's see.
So it's a blend of white, a little bit of green tea in there with some rose and lavender, a little jasmine, a little pop of peppermint, and it's
So you can
perfect.
see that
Yes,
there.
it's perfect for the end of the day when you're just wanting to just curl up with a good book and just kind of relax.
And it smells so nice. I wish you could smell this.
I'm going to go ahead. This tea, this hot water, was at a simmer, and you don't want to overboil the water when you're serving up white tea.
So each tea has a different temperature.
It does. So I filled this about halfway through. These leaves are going to puff up quite a bit. So this is just going to steep in here. I'm going to kind of get the leaves to float. I'm using an infuser that's open, and this can also fit in a mug, which is how I have my tea at home. But the reason I love loose leaf is it really allows you to smell the fragrance of the tea. You want your tea leaves to dance in here. I'm actually going to just get those submerged a little more.
The aroma is very nice. I wish they could smell that.
And then we're going to let that steep for about 3 minutes.
Oh.
So this temperature, if you had one of the Insta hot water pots, the temperature you would be looking for to steeping white tea would be about 175 to 185, depending on the type of white tea, for one. This has a little bit of green in it, so the temperature can be slightly higher. But you don't want the leaves to burn, because that will give it astringency. It'll release some of the tannins and also some of the caffeine in it. So you can end up burning the leaves and getting kind of a dry bitterness to the tea, which if you've ever had green tea, or you've had people say, oh, I don't like green tea, it might be because it got burned and it's astringent and bitter. So you want to make sure that you steep it at about a simmer. If you didn't have a thermometer or an Insta hot pot that you could set the temperature, you would listen or look for the simmer where the bubbles are just on the edge around the tea in the tea kettle before you pour it. So this one's actually a very forgiving tea. I have oversteeped mine at times, even at the right temperature, but it doesn't get bitter. Some do get bitter more than others.
So you shouldn't leave the tea bags in for like an hour and stuff like that?
Well, you end up drawing all the caffeine out.
Oh,
and
okay.
well,
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of other things that go on in tea. It's very much like wine. There's a lot of good properties. Tea is grown in several parts of the world. It originated in China, but it's a specific plant. A Camellia sinensis plant is what the tea plant is. There's only one kind with a couple of strains, but all the tea from white to black, or pu'er, which is a fermented black tea, it's all originates from that same type of plant.
Oh, wow.
So that's why they steep at different temperatures based off of how they're oxidized, meaning if they're oxidized or darker. Usually if they're darker, there's usually a little more caffeine in the tea plant. If it's a white tea like this, it will have very minimal caffeine. But that's the main difference for the steeping. You just want to make sure that the temperature and the time is good. And if you like your tea strong, just use more tea, not more temp.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's important. I didn't know that, and I was one of those people that probably did it the wrong way.
Well, it's the fun part about tea is that you can just keep testing it out and just find where what you enjoy. I don't know if you can smell that.
Oh, that smells really good. Oh, it's a great aroma. I love that.
So that's the part I love about tea. This is actually, you're kind of preparing your palate. You're preparing your digestion just by smelling and having smelling the leaves. You could smell. They call this the liquor.
Yeah, it's got a good aroma.
Here, let's go ahead and pour you a cup.
Wonderful. Oh, I can't wait. It looks good and smells really good.
You can see the liquor on here is just a nice kind
Look
of
at
a
that.
yellowish minty
Oh, let's see if
color.
you can see that there. Oh, yeah, there.
Okay.
It looks so smooth. Not like the tea that I usually make. So now I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a new way of doing my tea. Oh, wow. That is really good. Yes. You can really taste the individual items that you have in there. The different, the flowering taste, the lavender, I can taste that.
It's kind of layered,
good.
and it kind of, you get nuances of different flavors on your palate as it goes to the back of your throat. Again, it's very similar to wine. Tea is grown. It originated in China over 5,000 years ago in the Yunnan province, and the tea in that area, some of those trees are over 1,000 years old, and it's very expensive tea if you get a hold of they call it the mother tree or mother trees. But these trees over the years, you know, everything is gone to other parts of the world. India also has an indigenous tea plant called the Camellia assamica, which they discovered. They discovered in the late 1800s after England had already planted tea plants that they kind of stole from China.
Oh no!
By one of their Scottish botanists. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but anyways, but the neat thing about tea is that it's very sacramental in all of those cultures, and I think even without understanding maybe at that time why, there are so many properties about tea that I think is why people feel that it gives them a sense of calm or community or just having just a sense of peace. And some of that is the properties actually of the tea. Tea has what they call catechins or polyphenols, which translate into antioxidants. And it's like a lot of science, but what does that mean? Well, that translates into health benefits. There is a amino acid called theanine that interacts with the caffeine in tea, all tea, and that combination actually creates that sense of well-being and clarity. The caffeine's the clarity, the sense of well-being and mood is that L-theanine amino acid. Then they work synergistically together. And it's a time-released effect because those those are metabolized through your muscle, not like the caffeine you metabolize in coffee, which is metabolized in your bloodstream, which is why you get that instant jolt with coffee, and you don't necessarily get that with tea. So I think that there are some actual scientific reasons, but it's a beautiful way just to be and hang out. And
it is. I'm like in like the fancy places, London and the Queen and all of them and stuff. They have tea time every day and that, and I love my tea, and I probably drink 4 glasses a day in that. But if I knew how to steep it correctly, which now I have learned that, I think I'm going to be enjoying a lot more tea.
Oh, well, I think you should. I think it's important to have an infuser. I think if you need to set yourself up with staples, you need an infuser, maybe a timer, or just use a timer on your microwave. I like having an Insta hot water kettle because I like my water right away.
Yeah.
And it is nice to have a temperature, but I think when you get really comfortable with how the temperature is supposed to be, you can usually tell when it's ready. But it is nice to have a temperature setting if possible. But I think this is the most important thing is the infuser, the temperature, the time, and the infuser is important because those loose leaves have an opportunity to dance in the water and release all of its yummy flavors and the health benefits, which you don't necessarily get in a tea bag. The tea bags they actually were developed by accident because when tea was imported overseas, they used to be in wooden boxes that were lined with lead.
Oh, wow.
And tea was sold by weight. So in the 1700s, when tea would come to the U.S., and England obviously was controlling the U.S. at that time, during the colonial time, the tea was very expensive because of the weight of the tea and the taxes. So tea back in that time was about $100 a pound in their money. So they were, it was taxation without representation, which is why the Boston Tea Party happened, and I think the nail in the coffin for the Revolutionary War. So there still is not tax on tea here, but the tea bag was developed in the early 1900s. So they started making or packing tea in satin pouches. And somebody decided this might be convenient just to drop in boiling water. And so the satin pouches started to be used. They weren't very clean, and a lot of them were bleached. So, and a lot of tea bags, when some of the early beginning tea companies started up, Lipton, they would take the fannings, which are I call it the dust at the bottom of a cereal box, is pretty much what it is. But it's the premium tea gets sifted at the top, and so you get all these pretty leaves. The bits that are at the bottom are usually the fannings or just whatever's left, and those are what ends up in the tea bags.
Oh, really?
So you're not really getting all of the benefits of flavor or health with tea bags.
So all tea bags are that way now?
They have improved.
Okay.
And like for instance, if I travel, I get tea sacks, which are empty tea bags, and you can take a scoop of that, stick it in there, and then I put it in my hot water. When I'm on the airplane, I just ask for a cup of water, and then I get my own tea and I drop it in. So that's what I use tea bags for. And there are some companies that will do sachets. So they are developing them. But I still think, when you need to for convenience, I think they're good. If they're whole leaf tea leaves, but I always think an infuser is the best way to go because that's really where the tea can move around.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, are there different kinds of diffusers?
Yeah, well, the main ones are the open mouths. Like this one will fit in my tea mug and it'll fit in a teapot. There are the little tea balls. There's the little cute ones that you know, that are shaped like animals that you stick on the side, and they're kind of smushed down in there. I'm not a fan of really any of that, except for this. If you're taking tea in England, they're going to put your leaves directly in the pot, and then you're going to have a little shallow infuser here with holes. Really? Have you ever noticed that? And then you pour your tea from here through the little infuser into your teacup, which first pour is great. Yeah. But after that, think about it. Your leaves are just sitting in there floating around in super hot water. Oh. So you end up getting bitter leaves, bitter tea. You can.
The longer it steeps.
Yeah, especially with the green tea, and then it's a problem.
Okay.
So it really just, you start releasing more caffeine and tannins in the pot. So that's why I like the infuser, because you're pulling out. And a lot of times like this, we can reinfuse again in a pot of tea.
How often can you reuse that tea?
That one probably 2 to 4 times. I even
that's good.
Yes. So I mean, tea really is very cost effective.
Yeah. If you know how to do it. Right?
Yes. Black tea. It's black tea and non-teas are not as easy to keep re-steeping. They don't have the flavor intensity, whereas the whites and greens and oolongs you can usually keep re-infusing.
What do you mean by non-teas?
Non-teas is anything that's not technically from a tea plant or the Camellia sinensis. So that would be any of the botanicals, like the flowers or lemongrass or licorice root or chamomile. All of those are considered botanicals, or tisane, Tisane, and those are uncaffeinated, non-tea. What would they call them? Infusions.
Okay.
But
they give you the aroma and the little taste.
They do. Okay. And there are very good properties, health properties with all of those botanicals as well. Sure. For instance, this tea is great for just relaxing, and the lavender and the roses in that is a natural kind of a mood and just kind of a relaxant, makes you just calmer.
Yes. Oh yeah, I'm feeling really relaxed.
Yeah, chamomile is another one of those things. Chamomile and lavender together is wonderful. I mean, it's perfect maybe an hour before bedtime if you want to really just crawl into bed. That's good.
So this doesn't have, I mean, if you do it the right way, you don't get much caffeine out of this, but if you steep it too long, then that's when you get the caffeine?
Yes. However, white tea does not have much caffeine to begin with.
Okay.
It's usually picked in the spring, and in the springtime, there's not as many bugs as there is in the summertime. And I say that because caffeine is one of the natural bug repellents for a tea plant.
Oh, really?
So when bug season comes out and the new buds are forming, it will produce more caffeine in the young leaves. So sometimes, so sometimes those, and of course it's going to depend on where it's grown and how many bugs are around. I mean, in Assam, there's a ton of rain in the summer, and they do have a bug problem. So that's an area where they have issues with using pesticides. So So.
And your teas have no pesticides, and where do you find your teas?
I took 2 years to look for companies that I felt were, were concerned about the quality of tea and farms, their sourcing and how they produce their tea. What did they put into their soil? Did they spray their tea? Are they near heavy industry? Because that can all affect the tea and what is in those leaves, and if they're going to be contaminated or not. So I decided to start this online company after drinking my teas and thinking how great they were, but I wasn't thinking of opening a store. till I decided to take some of my teas to a third-party lab in St. Paul to get tested just to see how clean they were. And 3 out of the 4 teas were contaminated with cadmium,
Oh my.
which is a really bad metal. And it's near industry usually is how it gets in the soil. So that concerned me a lot, enough that I thought maybe there isn't a standard for this. There's too much of a gray area, and how do I know if my tea is really healthy or safe to drink? Especially, you know, I'm a breast cancer survivor, so I'm really concerned about what I put in my body. So that's why I started the company, is because I really didn't know, you know, the companies I was buying my tea from just as a consumer, which I trusted that they had clean tea, wasn't necessarily the case. So that's why I started.
Scary to know that the tea that you're drinking may have these contaminants in it, and they profess themselves to be natural. That's really scary. And for us lay people, how are we going to know?
You don't. You really don't, unless you can find a reliable source that you would trust, or that they could say that they have, you know, documentation that tea was tested, which certified organic teas here in the U.S. through Kwai is the company. They're pretty stringent, so that's a company that I trust. Farms that are not certified, that can't afford to be certified, but I am interested in carrying their tea, I will have it tested at the lab just to make sure that it is clean. So So
you've done all the work for us.
Yes, yes. So you should try your scone.
Yes, and can you tell our viewers your website to go to find out some more information about your teas?
Absolutely. You can go to www.cupofjoytea.com, and I have 38 teas online right now, and some of them are orthodox, meaning they are picked and presented as they are. There's no additional botanicals or organic flavorings in them. It's just the beautiful leaf it is. And then for those that like to have just a little pop of interest and flavor, I have a lot that also have botanicals in them, extras. So, and I do have a decent selection of tisanes, which would be herbal teas, fruit teas. I have a lot of rooibos, which is a South African redbush plant, and that also has its own health benefits. So I've got some of those as well.
Oh, and the tea's really good, but the scones are great too. These are delicious.
Thank you.
And can you tell us what else you have on the table here for the scones?
So I have a Devonshire cream, which is right here. You want to try? And this is a lemon curd.
This looks really good.
And we are actually having cream tea, which is tea and scones.
Oh.
Afternoon tea is considered the queen type tea that you're talking, sitting around low tables with the tiered trays with the scones and the sandwiches and the little petit fours and treats with tea, and that usually occurs in late afternoon. And then there's another tea called let's see, there's afternoon I just mentioned, and then there's high tea.
High tea.
And high tea is not afternoon tea. High tea is actually more around the 6 o'clock hour for people that have gotten off work. And they're looking for a hearty meal. Usually if they've been working and they're working more in construction, they don't want to sit down in nice chairs, so they'll actually stand up at a bar or a mantle, and they'll have big hearty pies and black tea. And that was all. The afternoon tea was actually started by the Duchess of Bedford in the 1800s when she was having a blood sugar drop in the afternoon, I think.
Oh, really? Well,
So-
thank you for inventing that.
Yeah.
To the last drop, this is so good, and it's consistently smooth. It's just wonderful. Like you said, it reminds me of wine,
Thank
very
you.
fine wine.
Do you notice as it's cooling that you're getting different nuances of flavor?
Yes,
Changes?
yes, I do.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, this is just wonderful. It's been such a fun time to have you and
Thank
to
you.
learn how to make the scones and to learn all about the tea and the temperatures. And is there any final words you would like to tell our viewers?
Thank you for listening. Make sure you get a good infuser.
Yes.
And I invite you to visit my website and join my mailing list. And but most of all,
Yes.
just drink good, clean tea. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's really important because I did not know all about the things that are in our tea. Like, I really trusted that the tea, when it said organic or natural, it was really organic, natural. But
Well, it should be.
Yeah,
it
should be.
It should be. Let's hope it is.
Yeah. So, but now, I mean, your tea, you've already done the work for us, so I feel very confident. And I love your packaging too.
Thank you.
And that's very nice. And that.
Thank you.
So, and thank you for bringing this to our attention.
You're welcome.
And I would just like to thank you for coming to Mary's Eclectic Interests. And we have had a great time with Joy here. And thank you, Joy, for coming, and hope to see you again soon and bring some more of your flavored teas with.
Yeah.
And we'll sit down and have high tea.
Sounds good.
So thank you for coming to Mary's Eclectic Interests. I'm Auntie Sharon.
And I'm Joy.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Volunteering is more than just a word. It's a window to opportunities. Take Mark, for example. By taking free TV classes at CCX Create, Mark is helping bring entertainment and information to his community, along with building a foundation of skills that will take him one step closer to his dreams. Share your passion. Visit ccxmedia.org.